Good morning. Well, here we are again, another post-Easter vlog to record for you. Interestingly, standing here doing this, it's kind of made me think, the fact that here we are again, another Easter over. It really has been a year. I think in many ways we just get used to week by week things happening, don't we? But it really has been over a year that we have been in this unfamiliar and now all too familiar state. But it's good to know that we have got a consistency in life, isn't it? I mean, things change, life changes. I mean, at the beginning of the week, we didn't for a moment imagine that we'd be welcoming little Mia into the world and into the church. But congratulations to Richard and Leah on her birth. And we didn't for a moment, or at least I didn't for a moment, imagine when I was writing this and preparing this, that we'd be getting to the point of delivering it to you. We would be in this state of, well, official mourning, I suppose. It's important that we remember the reality of Jesus as the stability in our lives. I want to encourage you today, take time to pray for Richard and Leah and their family. And take time to pray for Her Majesty and her family. Because although at totally opposite ends of the boat in so many ways, the need of Jesus at the heart of what is going on is absolutely key, isn't it? I wondered what we might talk about today, and I thought, it being post-Easter, I would have a look at some of the usual readings that we get just after Easter. And I was drawn to Luke 24, verses 13 to 35. It's well known. It's the journey to Emmaus. Two of the disciples, on Resurrection Day, decided that they would head out to Emmaus. Now, it wasn't a long journey. It was only 7 miles, but they were walking, so it was going to take, an hour or two. Well, actually, probably an hour or 3, but it wasn't a massive distance. And the Bible tells us that as they are walking down the road, they are talking about what happened. And I wondered, how were they talking about it? Were they wondering about the way in which their lives had suddenly been changed through the death of Jesus? Were they debating this theologically, considering it spiritually? Or were they bemoaning their lot and going, I don't know what's going on? You see, I kind of suspect it was a bit like the latter, that they were unsettled, unhappy, out of sorts. I don't want to necessarily say they were grumpy, but we do know from what they said later on that some of the women had turned up that morning and said there were angels and he is alive. And my thought is, for these two guys that are walking down the road to Emmaus, if you'd seen Jesus die on a cross, and then some of the women turned up that morning and went, angels have told us he is alive, what are you doing walking to Emmaus? If you're confident that the power of God has been manifest, you're not walking 7 miles down the road from Jerusalem. And I kind of wonder whether they were perhaps bemoaning their lot, or complaining, or disgruntled, or upset, or unhappy. Because I wonder whether they had just given up. Whether they did not believe the women when they said that he is risen. Because if they did, why on earth would they leave? But they're walking down the road, and maybe they're a bit disconsolate. They're a bit sort of out of sorts. They're feeling a bit let down, feeling a bit failed, feeling a bit lost. Maybe feeling that they have let down, or that they are failures, or that they have not helped people stay the right course. Whatever it is going on there, you know what it's like when you're feeling like that and somebody comes along and asks a stupid question. And all too often you just snap at them. And that's exactly what happened. Jesus comes along. They don't recognize him. It says their eyes were prevented from recognizing who he was. And he comes along and he says, what are you talking about? And they go, what? Seriously? How can you not know? I mean, have you been living under a rock? And you can hear the anger and the frustration and also the disappointment and the despair. They say, this Jesus of Nazareth, verse 19, this Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word, and our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who would redeem Israel. They'd lost their hope, hadn't they? They'd lost their vision. They felt let down. They felt lost. They felt hopeless. And that's why they were on the road. Despite the message of the women, that's why they were on the road, because they could not believe that there was anything to hope in for the future. And so they snap at Jesus. Well, Jesus comes right back at them. He doesn't pull his punches. He goes, "Oh, foolish men, and slow of heart to believe. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer?" And he starts to unlock the scriptures for them. And starting in the Old Testament, he starts to show them and point out to them all the things about himself that were written. Things that they should have known. Things that they should have seen. Things that they should have been able to hold on to. Things that they should have been able to believe in. How often, when you have fallen short of what God desires for you, have you discovered that the truth that you needed was already in the Bible? Stuff you should have known. And yet all too often we neglect to inform ourselves, don't we? And maybe it was like that for them. Maybe they just had neglected to inform themselves, and as a consequence they didn't know. And Jesus unpacks all these scriptures for them, and he shows them the truth. And as he's doing it, they arrive at Emmaus. And he goes, "Ta-da then," and goes to walk on. It was evening. Obviously, they'd hung around a bit in the morning, wondering, because it doesn't take you all day to walk 7 miles, you know what I mean? So they'd obviously hung around a bit in the morning, wondering about this message from the women before debating what to do and then giving up and still leaving. And Jesus appears to intend as though he's going to go on. He's going to keep going. And finally, these guys come to their senses. Finally, they find a bit of sense. Because you see, they lacked understanding. They lacked vision. They lacked hope. But in that moment, they had the sense to hold on to Jesus. In that moment, they had the sense to realize that there was someone special here. And the way that he had talked, and the things that he had known, that actually he could provide the answer for their lack of understanding. That he could provide the answer for their lack of ability to see what God wanted to do. That he could provide the answer for the fact that they had hoped he would be the Redeemer of Israel. And now had appeared to lose that hope. And they had in that moment the sense to hold on to Jesus. And he comes in with them, and as they share in the meal, he takes the loaf of bread and he breaks it, and their eyes are opened. Earlier, their eyes were seized. The word that's used there for that they couldn't see, is that their eyes were seized and prevented from seeing. Their eyes were seized by their hopelessness. Their eyes were seized by their lack of vision. Their eyes were seized by their lack of understanding. They couldn't see what was going on around them. All they could see was the negative. They couldn't recognize the hope. But when they spent time with Jesus, their eyes were open. And he breaks the bread, And in that moment they realize, and he disappears from in front of them. And they go, didn't our hearts burn within us when he was talking? Of course it's him. And they race back 7 miles. They run 7 miles back to Jerusalem. And they burst in the room. And they say, Jesus is alive. And the disciples say, we know. And Peter's seen him. Serves them right. They shouldn't have left in the first place, should they? Talk about taking the wind from your sails, stealing your thunder. But for me this year, here's the point of the story of the 2 disciples who went to Emmaus. Here's the point. In this world in which we live, it is really easy to lose sight of the truth. In despair and frustration and feeling let down, it is really easy to lose sight of the truth. And they lost sight of the truth of God, and as a result they lacked understanding, and they lacked vision, and they lacked hope. And Jesus sought them out. He came looking for them. They chose to walk away, and he came looking for them. The good shepherd searching for the sheep that was lost. And time with him. That's what made the difference. They spent time with him, and he broke through their lack of understanding. They spent time with him, and he broke through their lack of vision so they could see. They spent time with him, and he broke through their lack of hope so that they could believe once again. And holding on to him, let them see the truth. Let them find the vision. Let them overflow with hope. Let them abound with energy to run back to Jerusalem. You know that verse in Isaiah? They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall run and not grow weary. There you go, lads. 2.5, maybe 3 hours with Jesus. Focusing on him. Listening to him, and their life was reset. And it wasn't just them. Around the Easter story, Mary was heartbroken. She spent time with Jesus, and her life was reset. Peter was an abject failure. He spent time with Jesus, and his life was reset. Thomas could not believe until he spent time with Jesus, and his life was reset. And you know, I get it. I get how they felt that Sunday, Easter Sunday morning. I get those guys who went to Emmaus. I understand that. Because I've been in the place where I've just thought, oh, what is the point? There really is no point. And listen to the nonsense these people are speaking. Oh, stuff this for a game of soldiers. I'm off. I've been in that place. I've felt that emotion. Most of us have, to some degree or another. It's very easy to be in the place where everything seems pointless, to feel let down, or a failure, or lost, or hopeless. But whatever has seized your eyes, whatever has caused you so that all you see is downcast, hold on to Jesus. Constrain him to stay with you like they did. And spend time with him. Because whatever we are facing, spending time with Jesus will reset our vision, our hope, and our understanding of this world in which we live. Luke 24, verses 13 to 35. they went to Emmaus. And on the road to Emmaus, they spent time with Jesus. And they reset their life. Let's pray. Teach us, Lord, how to really spend time with you. To spend time with your word, learning the things that you would show to us. To spend time in prayer, talking to you and listening to you about the things that you would reveal to us. To spend time just savoring the reality of your presence so that our hearts might be inspired to trust and hope in you. Teach us, Lord, what it means to spend time with you. Not just shoot off a quick prayer, not just throw out a quick platitude, not just throw up a quick reference that's tucked away at the back of our heads, but to spend time, to give time to the presence of the living God. So that when we are askew and out of kilter and uncertain, we might find ourselves reset by spending time with you. Amen.